She was in his office. An intruder. With a mop. "Who let you in here?" he barked, snatching up his phone. She said nothing. Just slid a note onto the desk, his handwriting, his signature. Permission for cleaning after 9 p.m. It wasn't her job. And it wasn't her first time. But it was his collapse. The screen on his phone lit up. Board emergency call in 5. He ignored it. His eyes were locked on her, dark sweater, pale hands, the mop leaning like a rifle at rest. The tension in the room could cut skin. He knew every employee by face, but hers wasn't one of them. "You forged this," he snapped, but his voice lacked force now. "I didn't," she said softly, her first words. "But you don't remember, do you?" He didn't. And that unsettled him more than her presence. Somewhere in the distance, his driver was probably waiting. His tie was loose, he hadn't noticed her come in. That was unlike him. Very unlike him. "You have 10 seconds to explain," he said, standing tall again, reclaiming control. "I don't need 10, she said. "But you do." She turned and left, her mop screeching against the marble floor. On the desk, his signature stared back at him, ink, initials, time stamp. All real. He sat down. Then stood again. The room felt wrong. His glass of bourbon untouched. The light on the hallway sensor blinking, she was gone. But the scent of lavender remained. The next morning, he didn't show up at the usual breakfast meeting. His COO made a joke. His assistant lied. His ex-wife called twice, then stopped calling. That afternoon, his lawyer sent an email with the subject line, "About last night." No one had heard of her. No file. No contract. No trace in the staff system. Except one forgotten name in a 5-year-old cleaning company invoice, a subcontractor hired once, fired quietly. The same name was on that note. And suddenly, he remembered. But not everything. Not yet. He didn't sleep that night. By 5 a.m., he was back in the office. Same room. Same desk. Same note, still there, creased now at the edges, like it had aged decades overnight. He played the security footage 3 times. She wasn't on it. At 9:06 p.m., the hallway was empty. At 9:07, the camera glitched. One frame skipped. At 9:08, the mop was leaning against the wall. At 9:09, she was walking out. No face. No entry. Just exit. His company was built on systems, control, data, and now, something had slipped through all 3. The phone rang. He didn't answer. The intercom buzzed. He ignored it. Then the elevator chimed. He looked up. His head of security stepped in, awkwardly holding a folder. "We ran the facial ID match," he said. "Nothing current. But..." He opened the folder. An old staff photo. 5 years ago. A team-building retreat in Aspen. She was in the background. Unsmiling. Younger. A name tag, Lena. She was a cleaner, security said. Hired through a temporary agency. Fired after 2 weeks. "Why?" he asked sharply. Security shifted uncomfortably. "You did it. Personally." No explanation in the file. Just, terminated. He didn't remember. That wasn't normal. He remembered faces. He remembered names. He remembered everyone who had ever wasted his time, or challenged him. But her? Nothing. His lawyer called again. He answered this time. "Are you aware she visited our downtown property this morning?" "What?" "She had clearance. Full clearance. Used your personal override code." He froze. "How is that even?" "She left something for you." "What?" "A key." Silence. "To what?" She didn't say. At 3 p.m., he left the tower for the first time in days. No entourage. No assistant. Just the key, small, steel, slightly worn, like it had lived 100 lives already. The address she left was handwritten on an old business card. His business card. But not the one he used now, the one from 7 years ago, before the rebranding, before the IPO, before the world started calling him the self-made genius. The card smelled faintly of lavender. The location was an abandoned lot. Once a warehouse. Now half rubble, half silence. He walked alone. The key fit a rusted padlock on a side door. Click. Open. Inside, dust, broken glass, metal shelves. And one chair. On it, a single item, a thick manila envelope. No name. No logo. He opened it. Inside, photos. Him. Her. Together. A party. A hallway. A hotel lobby. All dated. All real. And then, a letter. Handwritten. You told me to disappear. I did. You promised you'd forget. You did. But I didn't. I remember everything. And now, so will you. He sat down. And for the first time in years, he was afraid. Not of her. Of what he had forgotten. The next morning, his board called an emergency meeting. Stock dipped. Rumors swirled. He didn't show up. Because he was back at that lot. With a new question forming in his mind, not who she was. But who he had been. The sun was high, but the alley behind the lot felt frozen in time. He hadn't moved for an hour. The envelope lay open beside him. The photos, still untouched, the ink barely faded. And that letter, its final line echoed louder than a scream. You promised you'd forget. You did. But he hadn't promised. He would have remembered something like that. Wouldn't he? His phone buzzed. He let it. Then it rang. Private number. He hesitated. Answered. You found the first part, said a voice. Calm. Steady. Female. Lena? Pause. Not yet. Click. She hung up. Not yet? What did that even mean? By the time he returned to headquarters, the entire 17th floor was waiting. Investors. Lawyers. HR. They all spoke at once, policy breaches, access code leaks, stockholder panic. He nodded through all of it. Then, quietly, anyone touched my office? No, sir, his assistant said. Good. Don't. Behind the locked door of his office, he found the mop. It was leaning again in the same place. Exactly. Same angle. Same faint trail of lavender across the marble. But now, something else. A USB stick. Black. Unmarked. Left in plain sight. He plugged it into the secure system. One folder. No name. Inside, a single video file. It opened on security footage. His office. 2 nights ago. Him, pacing. Talking. To no one. No Lena. No woman. Just him. Arguing. Yelling. Then laughing. Then silence. Then, weeping. He closed the video. No timestamp. No source. Just labeled, confession_1. That night, a package arrived at his penthouse. No return address. Delivered by hand. Inside, a children's book. Dog-eared. Torn cover. The Littlest Hero. He hadn't seen that book since college. It was his mother's favorite. She used to read it to him when she could barely afford heat in the winter. He hadn't thought about it in 20 years. And then he saw the inscription. To A. For when you forget why you started. L. L? Lena? Or someone else? There was no way she could have had this book. It was lost in the house fire. The one he never talked about. The one that happened the night before his first $1 million deal. The night that changed everything. But the book was real. The handwriting, his mother's. He ran his fingers over it. And the air in the room turned heavy again. Elsewhere in the city, in a quiet diner off 6th Avenue, a woman in a gray coat paid in cash and left no tip. She took a seat near the window and opened a notebook. Pages were filled with dates, names, and symbols. On the last page, his name. Underlined. Then, below it, a new name. J.M. And a note. He doesn't remember me either. She closed the book. And smiled. Back in his penthouse, he opened his old storage safe. In it, photos, awards, files. A life catalogued and perfect. Except one photo was missing. The one of him and the interns. Aspen. He was sure he'd kept it. He remembered that trip. The deals. The speech. The celebration. But now he wondered, what else had he chosen to forget? And what if forgetting wasn't an accident? He stared at the empty slot in the photo case like it might explain itself. It didn't. The missing picture, the one from Aspen, wasn't just a memory. It was proof. Or at least, it used to be. He opened his backup archives. Folder after folder, pitch decks, acquisition files, board photos. But none of Lena. Not a single record. He called IT. I need a restoration. From 5 years ago. Staff directory, internal camera logs, everything. The line went quiet. You cleared that archive last quarter, sir. No, I didn't. Yes, sir. You signed it yourself. Encrypted wipe. Irreversible. He didn't remember. But someone clearly wanted him to. The next day, the second USB arrived. No delivery. It was just there, on his car seat. Labeled, confession_2. He didn't wait. He plugged it in the moment he got home. Same format. Same angle. His office. This time, no pacing. Just him, sitting. Speaking softly. I told her to leave. I told her she wasn't good for the brand. That she didn't belong here. I gave her money. A lot of it. I made her sign. He paused in the video. Looked at the camera. Right into it. I thought it was over. But it never was. The feed cut off. No timestamp. Again. No metadata. Nothing. He sank into the chair. And in that silence, something inside him cracked. Midnight. He drove. Back to the warehouse. Back to the lock. But it was gone now, door wide open, inside gutted. No envelope. No chair. Just graffiti on the far wall. Large, red letters. What you erase doesn't die. The next morning, a message slid under his office door. Handwritten. One sentence. Ask Jeremy Martin. He froze. Jeremy Martin. His former co-founder. The only person who had ever walked away from his empire without looking back, or taking a payout. They hadn't spoken in years. After the fallout, Jeremy disappeared. Changed cities. Maybe countries. But the message was clear, he was part of this. And maybe, just maybe, Lena wasn't acting alone. He tracked down an old email. A dead account. But the signature still had a number. He tried it. Voicemail. He didn't leave a message. He tried again. And again. The fifth time, someone picked up. No words. Just silence. He spoke, I know it's you. I need to talk. It's about her. The line went dead. 3 hours later, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. Just a text. Tomorrow. 8 p.m. Riverside Cafe. Come alone. Back in his apartment, he opened the children's book again. This time, he noticed something tucked between the pages. A Polaroid. Faded. Lena, younger. Standing beside him. In a library. They were both smiling. And in his hand, he was holding the same book. In the background, Jeremy Martin. Smiling, too. The caption on the back, written in pen. The beginning of everything. June 12, 18. He checked his calendar from that year. June 12. He was in London. A major pitch. The day he landed his Series B funding. A headline day in the company's history. But none of this, Lena, the photo, the library, matched that trip. His memories didn't align. Or maybe they weren't his to begin with. Tomorrow, he would meet Jeremy. Maybe finally get answers. Or just more questions? But tonight, he stood by the window, gripping the photo. For the first time in his life, he wasn't trying to control the narrative. He was inside someone else's story. And he had no idea how it would end. The Riverside Cafe hadn't changed. Same chipped red awning. Same wooden chairs that creaked too loud. Same bitter coffee. He used to love this place, before lawyers, before NDAs, before everything became leverage. 8 p.m. Sharp. He entered alone. No bodyguard. No watch. No phone. Just the photo in his jacket pocket, creased now from overthinking. Jeremy was already there. Older. Beard. No smile. He didn't stand. Sit. No handshake. No welcome. Just tension. So, Jeremy said, stirring tea he hadn't touched. She found you. He nodded slowly. You knew? Jeremy laughed once. Bitter. I warned you. Back then. You didn't listen. You erased her like a typo. I don't remember. Exactly. He leaned in, eyes colder than winter glass. That's the problem. The silence between them grew until it cracked. Who is she? He asked. Jeremy tilted his head. Don't you mean, who was she? Pause. She was our anchor. She made the company human. And when you started building walls, she was the last one still knocking. He reached into his bag. Pulled out a small notebook. Tossed it across the table. Inside, sketches, notes, mind maps. All in her handwriting. A vision. A dream. The original version of the company. Before it became global. Before it became his. He flipped through the pages, hand trembling. I don't remember these, he whispered. Jeremy's voice was quiet. But sharp. Because they don't belong to the version of you that survived. Outside, the wind picked up. A loose paper flew from the notebook and landed on the floor. He bent to pick it up, and froze. It was a letter. Folded. Yellowed with time. Addressed to him. Dated 4 years ago. He opened it. I won't fight you anymore. You win. You always do. But I'll never forget what you took. You didn't fire me, you buried me. And now, I'm done waiting for you to remember. I'll remind you myself. L. He couldn't read the rest. His hands were shaking too hard. She loved the mission more than any of us, Jeremy said quietly. And you destroyed that. 4 numbers. 4 speed. 4 optics. I didn't mean to. You didn't care to mean. That hit harder. He stood up. Couldn't breathe. Why now? He asked. Why is she doing this now? Jeremy shrugged. Maybe because she finally has nothing left to lose. That night, sleep didn't come. He sat on the cold balcony of his penthouse, the city glittering beneath him like a lie. He thought of every intern he'd promoted. Every deal he'd made. Every applause he'd earned. And wondered what was built on silence. By morning, a package waited at his door. Inside, a single object. A voice recorder. He pressed play. Her voice filled the room. Tired. Controlled. Unapologetic. I didn't want revenge. I wanted closure. But you don't give closure, you give exits. You silence. You buy silence. But not this time. A pause. This time, I own the ending. Click. The message ended. But her words didn't. He opened his laptop. Typed her name into the internal server again. No results. But in the corner of the screen, a blinking notification. New calendar event added, June 12, Aspen. He hadn't added it. No one had access. He clicked it. Location, Mountain Ridge Lodge, Aspen. Time, 9 p.m. Date, tomorrow. And below that, a single line of text. The real beginning. Let's see if you remember anything there. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the screen. His empire was shaking. But so was something deeper. Something he had buried so well, even he didn't know where to dig. And now she was digging for him. The jet cut through the clouds like a scalpel. He sat alone in the cabin, ignoring champagne, screens, and the chirping voice of his assistant in the background. Aspen. He hadn't been back since that retreat. Not officially. Not even for the annual summits. Too many ghosts. Too many things left unsaid, and unremembered. He opened the notebook Jeremy had given him. Back page. Same name. J.M. Beneath it, he doesn't remember me either. Jeremy had claimed nothing when asked. Just a quiet, she wasn't talking about me. Then turned and walked away. So who was J.M.? And how did Lena know him? They landed at dusk. Mountain Ridge Lodge stood unchanged, polished wood, glass walls, the cold scent of old pine and old money. His suite was waiting. But someone had been there. On the desk, a sealed envelope. No name. No stamp. Just one word, printed in block letters. Remember. Inside, a photograph. Not a Polaroid this time. A glossy, high-res print. Lena. In a boardroom. Standing. Speaking. Behind her, projected on a screen, a slide from his first major investor pitch. But the timestamp was wrong. It was dated 6 months before that pitch ever happened. And in the corner of the photo, a man. Back to camera. Tall. In a gray coat. The same gray coat from the diner. The woman. Notebook. Page with J.M. But this wasn't a woman. This was him. Same posture. Same build. And the initials now burned brighter. J.M. But he didn't know this man. Did he? He called Jeremy. Voicemail. Who is J.M.? He demanded into the silence. Why was he at my pitch, before it even happened? Why is Lena, why is all of this starting before the beginning? He hung up. The photo remained on the desk, daring him to unravel time itself. 9 p.m. No event. No lights. No one waiting. He wandered the snowy terrace where the original company logo was first sketched. Where toasts were raised. Papers signed. Futures sealed. Now, just silence. Until he turned the corner and saw it. A projector. Running. Onto the lodge's stone wall. Old footage. Grainy. His early office. His team. Laughing. Then her. Lena. She wasn't mopping floors. She was leading. Workshops. Brainstorms. Investor calls. And there, again, the man in the gray coat. J.M. Only this time, he turned toward the camera. And for a split second, the face was familiar. Not exactly his. But not his. Something in between. He reached for the projector. No wires. No controls. And then, static. The footage dissolved. And on the screen, in plain white text. You split the company. You split the memory. You split the man. Then darkness. Back in his suite, he found another note slipped under the door. Different handwriting. Shorter. You buried more than just her. J.M. remembers. Do you? He didn't sleep. The name echoed like a ricochet in his mind. Who was J.M.? A former partner? A twin? A ghost of a decision? A version of himself? He opened every archived email from the pre-funding days. Nothing. Until one bounced back. J.M. at Etherbuild. Com. A domain long dead. But his internal system flagged it. Previously marked as internal collaborator. Access revoked, June 12, 2018. Aspen. Same day. Same place. Same silence. Somewhere, in a different time zone, someone else opened the same photo. Same timestamp. Same room. Same woman. Only for him, the memory wasn't broken. It was alive. He stared at her in the photo, then wrote 4 words into his notebook. He's starting to remember. Then closed the book. And waited. He left the lodge before dawn. Couldn't stay. Not with those screens still flickering in his mind. Not with that face, J.M., that almost him, not him, maybe him, still staring through time. His flight back was delayed. A snowstorm. He didn't mind. He welcomed the turbulence. Anything was better than silence. Back in the city, his building's power had been accidentally cut for 3 hours. Security systems reset. Cameras down. When the elevator finally opened to his penthouse, something was off. He felt it before he saw it. The air, colder. Lavender, stronger. On the coffee table, a framed photo. New. Him. Asleep. In this apartment. Taken last night. He dropped it. The glass cracked. A shard sliced his finger. He didn't feel it. On the back of the frame, another note. You said you never sleep. You lied. That day, he did something he hadn't done in years. He walked. No car. No calls. No assistant. Just the city under his shoes. He walked past the old office, their first office, now a yoga studio. He walked past the cafe where she'd bring sketchbooks and argue with interns. He walked to the park bench they once sat on after the failed pitch. The one she had called the real turning point. Back then, she'd said, you don't fail until you stop asking questions. He hadn't asked a single real question in years. At home, a small victory awaited. Buried in an old backup drive, mislabeled, almost deleted, he found a folder, L_personal. Password protected. He tried the obvious, Lena 1987. Fail. Then, remember me. Fail. Then, without thinking, Aspen 0612. Click. Access granted. Inside, notes, letters, audio files. One stood out. A video message. Her, facing the camera. Same lavender sweater. Same calm intensity. Hi, she said, without smiling. If you're watching this, maybe you're finally ready. She leaned forward. You weren't always like this. You didn't always forget. There was a time you chose to remember everything. Even pain. The video glitched. Static. Then her voice again. Ask him. Ask J.M. who you were before the pitch. Before the split. And finally. Truth isn't something you find. It's something you survive. He called Jeremy again. Voicemail. He wrote an email instead. This time, no demands. Just 4 words. I want to remember. Sent. No reply. But an hour later, an auto-generated calendar invite appeared. Meeting location, Vault Room, HQ, Sublevel 3. Time, 11 p.m. He hadn't used that level in years. Only a handful had access. And none of them were left in the company. 11 p.m. He descended the old elevator manually. Code, JML, 612. It accepted. The doors opened into darkness. Motion lights flickered on, one by one. In the center, a table. A single folder. And beside it, a second chair. Empty. The folder had no label. Inside, a contract. Signed by him and J.M., dated 6 weeks before the company launch. Clause 9. 3. In the event of cognitive compromise, identity division, or psychological partition, the individuals involved must be reintegrated via mutual acknowledgement protocol. He blinked. Read it again. Identity division? What kind of contract was this? Was it metaphor? Was it? He looked around. And heard the elevator activate behind him. Footsteps. A man stepped out. Gray coat. Notebook in hand. Same face. But not his. Not exactly. The man smiled. You made it. He opened the notebook. Inside, everything. Dates. Notes. Designs. Memories. All annotated in his handwriting. Or. J.M. S. Tell me who you are, he said. The man didn't answer. Just slid a photo across the table. Lena. Between them. Smiling. Behind her, a whiteboard. On it, scrawled in marker. One idea. 2 minds. One condition, never forget who you are. He looked up. J.M. was already gone. The notebook remained. And on its first page, a final message. Tomorrow, you'll remember. One last test. The notebook was heavier than it looked. Not in weight. In consequence. Every page felt like a wound reopening. Diagrams, schedules, scribbles in overlapping handwriting, his and J.M.'s plans they built together. Phrases he didn't remember writing. Drawings she'd made. Notes beside her name. And on the last page, a question circled in red ink, again and again. What did she trade to protect you? He closed the notebook. The question rang louder than any answer ever could. By morning, the news had spread. A journalist, anonymous source, unconfirmed, published an exposé titled "The Woman Behind the Empire, Erased but Not Gone." Photos of Lena. Blurred. But real. Snippets of a contract, signed by him. Claims of misconduct, silencing, memory manipulation. The article didn't say how she was erased. But it asked, why? He was trending. Publicly. Globally. And still, he had no statement. No memory. No defense. Because he couldn't fight what he hadn't yet remembered. That evening, his personal email pinged. One sender. Lena. w@restoremail.org. Subject line, tonight. Message, you're ready now. Just come home. No address. But he knew where. Not the penthouse. The real home. The one he hadn't visited since the night the fire took everything. His old house. He drove himself. No escort. No team. The street was darker than he remembered. Smaller. But the house still stood, half-burned, half-preserved by time and shame. The gate was open. So was the front door. Inside, silence. Dust. Ash. Old wood. The faintest hint of lavender. And in the living room, set carefully on the scorched coffee table, a box. Inside, dozens of tiny items. Her name tag. His first pen. A ring box, empty. A photo of them in front of a whiteboard. Her sketchbooks. His mother's book, The Littlest Hero, again. And at the bottom, wrapped in cloth, a recorder. He pressed play. Her voice again. But older. Wearier. You were brilliant, she began. You just didn't know how to be human and powerful at the same time. I did, her voice cracked. Until I couldn't anymore. Until I had to choose, protect you, or stay whole. Another pause. You chose silence. I chose sacrifice. And now. I need you to remember why. The message ended. But the recorder beeped once more. One file remained. Locked. Password required. He hesitated. Then typed, what she traded. Click. File opened. A video. Security footage. Low-res. Dated the week before Aspen. A boardroom. He was there. Furious. Pacing. She was there too. Silent. Waiting. A man sat at the head of the table, not J.M., someone else. Unknown. The deal was clear. She signs a document. He keeps the company. She disappears. The man nods. She signs. Then stands. He, the man he used to be, doesn't stop her. Doesn't speak. She looks back once. Then walks out. And with her, everything real walked out too. He paused the video. Couldn't breathe. That was the moment. Not Aspen. Not J.M. This. This was the true fracture. And he watched himself let it happen. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text, tomorrow 8 p.m. One last chance. You'll know where. No signature. But he did know. The rooftop. Where it had all started. Where the first prototype was tested. Where they'd once stood, him, Lena, J.M. And promised, no matter what, we stay honest. Tomorrow, the truth would rise. Or everything would fall. The city below shimmered, unaware that something was about to fracture above it. He stood on the rooftop. Same place. Same view. But it didn't feel victorious anymore, it felt like Judgment Day. 8 p.m. Sharp. The wind howled, carrying echoes from the past. The sound of her laugh, the buzz of old brainstorms, the scratch of marker pens on glass walls. Behind him, nothing but steel and glass. In front of him, the place where they once shook hands, swore loyalty, and sketched the future in promises. Tonight, someone else was coming. Or maybe everyone already had. His phone buzzed. One new message, Lena. W. Step forward. The rest is waiting. He took one step. Motion lights activated along the ledge. And then, a screen lit up. Suspended on a temporary frame, it flickered for a moment, then revealed a live feed. Him. On the roof. But from another angle. He turned, no visible cameras. Then a second feed appeared. Split screen. J.M. standing on another rooftop. Across the city. Watching him. And a third feed. Lena. Not in person. A pre-recorded video. She stood in front of an empty chair. Tonight, she said, is not about exposing. It's about choosing. She sat down. Looked into the camera. You've spent years building. Winning. Growing. But you built it all on a single, silent condition, that I disappear. Her voice didn't tremble. Now, you have one final chance, not to fix the past. But to own it. The feed froze on her image. Beside it, new words appeared. Will you erase again? Or will you remember fully, no matter the cost? The rooftop lights dimmed. A drone hummed above. Then lowered, and gently dropped a black box at his feet. Inside, a device. One button. Red. Beside it, a contract. Digitally linked. Option A, maintain current structure. Secure leadership. Archive all memory records permanently. Option B, initiate restoration protocol. Reinstate erased records. Transfer 49% equity. His hands shook. He hadn't signed anything like this since the beginning. Then, a sound behind him. Steps. He turned. J.M. was there. Not on screen. Here. In person. Face older. Eyes heavier. And yet, almost like a reflection. The version of himself that hadn't chased scale, but stayed with soul. She didn't want revenge, J.M. said softly. She wanted you to see her. He looked at the button. Red. Simple. Push to forget. Or push to remember. But memory came with cost. And maybe, consequence. Why now? He asked. J.M. stepped closer. Because it's the only time you've stopped running. Pause. And because she's leaving. For good. His chest tightened. Where is she? J.M. didn't answer. Just handed him something. A letter. Folded. Worn. Written in her script. You don't owe me anything. But you owe yourself the truth. He closed his eyes. All the flashes returned. Her voice in meetings. Her eyes in disagreement. Her hands drawing models no one ever credited. He had erased her from the world. But not from himself. Not completely. One final buzz on his phone. Live feed updated. Lena. Boarding a train. Platform 9. She was leaving. Not the city. The story. His. Unless he changed it now. He looked at J.M. No words. Just one question in his own heart. Was he strong enough to be rebuilt? The screen dimmed. Timer, 0:10. 9 seconds. The device blinked. 8. He raised his hand. 7. The city kept glowing below. 6. He whispered to himself. 5. I remember. 4. But would he choose to keep remembering? 3, 2, 1, 0. The button clicked. Not silence. Not explosion. But a pulse, like a switch turning inside him. The screen went black. The rooftop lights shut off. Only the city below kept shining. He stood still. Eyes closed. And then, memory came crashing back. Not in flashes. In weight. He remembered the pitch. The first real one, the one where he froze mid-sentence. Forgot the numbers. Forgot the words. He remembered the silence in the room. And how she stepped in. Lena. Calm, clear, powerful. She saved the deal. Spoke his idea better than he ever could. He remembered thinking, I don't want to owe her for this. He remembered the board's reaction, too emotional. He remembered the whisper someone said to him that day, she's the kind you thank privately, and let go publicly. And the worst part? He'd listened. He remembered the first equity agreement, and signed by her, though she had been there from the start. He remembered how J.M. fought for her stake. How they argued. How he said, this is business. Don't make it personal. And J.M.'s reply, but she is the reason this exists. He remembered forcing J.M. out months later. Split memory. Split power. Clean branding. Erase the mess. Polish the version that wins. He remembered the night she left. How she stood in the office, holding a folder with everything she'd built. And how he said nothing. Just turned his back. She waited. Hoped. He didn't move. She walked away. He never saw her again. Until now. The rooftop lights flickered back on. The screen returned. This time, a live feed. The train. She was still on it. Still leaving. But slower now. He could still reach her. If he ran. If he really ran. J.M. stepped forward. You chose it, he said. Now go live it. And just like that, he was alone. With truth. With memory. With choice. He ran. Down the stairs. Past the lobby. Into the street. No driver. Just his own feet. Breath burning. Legs heavy. But he didn't stop. People stared. Cameras flashed. Let them. He ran through traffic. Through lights. Through everything he once thought he was. To the station. Platform 9. The train was still there. Doors closing. He shouted her name. People turned. She didn't. He shouted again. This time, she froze. Turned. Eyes wide. He reached her. Just as the doors were closing. Caught them with his hands. Panting. Shaking. Looking straight at her. I remember, he whispered. Tears welled in her eyes. So? I was wrong. Silence. And then, the smallest nod. Not forgiveness. But maybe, an opening. The next day, the company released a statement. A new leadership structure. 49% equity transferred to a reinstated partner. Lena W. The world went wild. But he didn't speak to the press. He was too busy, in a quiet room, whiteboard behind him, marker in hand, listening. She was at the head of the table. Again. This time, she wasn't leaving. Months later, a photo surfaced. 3 people on a rooftop. Him. Lena. J.M. smiling. Caption, some ideas are too human to be erased. He rebuilt the company. Not bigger. Deeper. Not louder. Truer. People still called him a genius. But now, when they asked how he did it, he answered the same thing every time. By remembering. And when asked what he remembered most, he smiled. And said. That the greatest thing I ever built, was the courage to undo what I once called success.